All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our conversation right now. Tajudeen Ibrahim, who is the Senior Vice President, Head of Research and Strategy at Chapel Hill, Denham, is joining me right now from Lagos. Mr. Ibrahim, good morning and thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Good morning, Nancy.
Good
Thank you for
morning.
having me.
Yes, speak to me about what's happening in Lagos. I guess you're in Lagos, isn't it?
Yes, I am. Yes,
But
I
are you
am.
still working from home?
Yes, we are still telecommuting. We are still working from home, and we rarely go to the office. We go only when it is extremely needed.
How has it been so far working from home? Has your productivity increased or is it a bit stable or is unchanged or you've noticed a productivity decrease?
Well, I think at the best, productivity has been stable to improving. If you consider the fact that now one now has a bit of flexibility and supported with IT, so it is stable and there are periods of improvement. Where you see better sort of working condition because you are telecommuting.
Speak to me about the city, the commercial nerve center where you are, Lagos. The government has given a directive, at least some churches opened over the weekend. We're seeing a gradual reopening of the economy. The ease of the lockdown has been extended by another 4 weeks. I know you're working from home, but perhaps through your windows, you'll be seeing what's also happening on the street of Lagos where you live.
Yes, I think Lagos is peaceful as we speak, and so what I can also say is that some people in Lagos seem to be moving on with their respective lives, considering the fact that even though there is still the curfew and probably some level of control is still in place in terms of social distancing. I think, broadly speaking, Lagos is beginning to return to normalcy, and we are, beginning to see, businesses reopening. We are beginning to see, transport system, coming back to normal, and we are beginning to see, consumers on the street making demands for some goods and services. At least, when one drives around Lagos, one see, some form of hawking still on the street. So it is broadly speaking, gradually getting back to normalcy. That is the way I would describe it.
You know, Lagos is very critical in terms of what happens in the economy, the larger and the broader Nigerian economy, if you take a look at it, because Lagos is the commercial nerve center. You have ports there. It's a city or a state of more than 20 million people. The hustle and bustle is there. So how integral is Lagos in the reopening of the nation economy and getting the economy right in the second half of this year?
So Lagos preparation, I think, has been awesome considering what the governor of the state has been doing, Governor Sanwo-Olu. I think, all the guidelines that the government of Lagos has put in place are, supportive of a full rebound of economic activities in the next couple of months. And we are, just like you said, churches and mosques now can now open, and then we have a case where markets are opening on alternate days, so, compared to like before where they probably open less frequently. So I see that leading to a path of recovery for the state and for the entire economy at large, considering Papa Port is in Lagos. We have key manufacturing companies operating, from Lagos, and we also have, many of the banks. In fact, all the banks in Nigeria, commercial banks now have their headquarters or head offices in Lagos. So one would expect that, if Lagos is well managed, which is what is currently happening, it is currently being well managed. One would expect that over time or in the next couple of months, we would see the impact on their entire economy as small, medium, and micro businesses, begin to open fully for businesses. Nonetheless, maintaining the social distancing sort of culture, and also bearing in mind and putting in place all the precautions that the government of Lagos have suggested to the public. So by and large, I think Lagos is on track for a gradual recovery, and eventually over the next couple of months, we begin to feel the impact on the entire economy as a whole.
Hello YouTubers, welcome to Moneyline with Nancy TV YouTube channel. This is where we provide you with instructive business directions, processes, and guidance to help you assess the right resources to fund your businesses to withstand every form of internal and external shock. You will find here awesome informative videos on business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle just to help you make informed business and financial decisions. Punch the subscribe button and let us drive you through the world of business. Please follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow us for latest updates on our website. Do you think that Lagosians are also throwing caution to the wind in terms of the coronavirus protocols that has been set in place by the Presidential Task Force as well as the Lagos State government? That's the A part of the question. The B part of the question also is there something in between completely shutting down and reopening safely? Because for most economies now, some are even, in some countries, they are mulling coming back, going on a lockdown again. But in Nigeria, we know the debate was between saving lives and saving livelihoods. For example, Lagos is the commercial nerve center. So have people thrown caution to the wind despite what Governor Sanwo-Olu is doing? And is there something in between that can be done between completely shutting down and completely opening the reopening the economy fully?
Well, I think in terms of compliance, I would say it is mixed because, even though going out is limited, I don't always go out. The few times that I go out in my car, I can see, some people who I can say are not too bothered about, the outbreak or the danger in COVID-19. I think people just want to move on with their lives. I can see, small groups of people, catching fun, particularly during the festive period, and also, like towards the evening where people want to sit around, some small corners to have some
beer parlors.
Exactly.
And
So we
pepper
are
soup
beginning to
joints.
see exactly. We are beginning to see that, and so it is suggesting a mixed sort of a mixed, can I say a mixed sort of way in which people are obeying the precautions that have been suggested, because some are really keeping to it strictly, while some are just in between, while some are just moving on with their lives. And I think what really matters the most is for the entire public to bear in mind the risks associated with COVID-19. And in terms of economic recovery, and I hope I still remember the second question, I think what we should do, in my mind, is to prepare for the future. We are in the current period, and we really can do less, because the reality or the truth is we were not prepared as a country or as a state. It was not expected. So going total full or full lockdown, will be hard, for average Nigerians and average Lagosians. But sort of gradually reopening will bring normalcy, and then people can further again be able to put food on their tables. So there are a lot of people that have resorted into begging. Some are, going into stealing, while some are making attempts to rob because their livelihoods have been taken away. I give you an instance. In Lagos, for instance, the motorcycle, businesses are not working as we speak because the government, does not allow them, which probably is the right thing. But the question is, where or how do they feed their families when the means of livelihoods have been taken away from them? So it is sort of mixed in terms of the impact on the entire Lagosians.
Now, the question is, and let me stick with it a bit, is are we going to go on a complete shutdown again because we're seeing rising cases? Or how can we also reopen safely? Because should we have a full economic reopening? That was why I asked, is there something in between? What we are doing right now, is it in between? And if it is in between, are we doing it well enough that can bring down the cases of infections to a more reasonable level and perhaps eradicate it just like New Zealand did over the weekend? One would say, okay, New Zealand is a country of 5 million people. We have a lot of states in Nigeria that are more than 5 million. But it's about protocol, it's about leadership, it's about science, as well as the political part of it.
Well, I think it would be hard for me to say that we should go back on a full lockdown because, the full lockdown period was very hard, for Lagosians because, people, as I said earlier, had to start begging for food items. And, a few people that were distributing food items to people were not, or let me say, could not, reach everybody. We saw video clips, even the government tried, they distributed some food items, but the reality is it did not get to everybody that needed it. We saw a lot of video clips where families were crying for food. So going on a full lockdown, in my mind, wouldn't be, the right approach for the next consideration. What I think is, further sensitization of the public. So we talk more to the government talks more to the public, sensitize them a bit more, and then in cases where they have to enforce the law, they enforce it at that point, just so that people comply with the protocols and the guidelines that the government have put in place. Otherwise it might be very hard for us to have a successful or a quick recovery, because if the cases, are rising and we see further rises, it will be hard for us to go back to normalcy and then for the economy to recover fully. But the government can really sensitize the public more using a lot of channels just that they have been doing. And then we should have, law enforcement agencies in places where they notice a slack, where they will have to put in enforcement. In terms of public transport, I can say Lagos, I can say largely speaking, there is up to like 60% compliance in terms of how buses are loading in Lagos, based on what I've heard so far. But broadly speaking, I think, the government needs to do more in terms of sensitization of the public. Number two, in terms of enforcing, in areas or in regions where they notice a slack in terms of the public, obeying all these rules and regulations in order for us to fully be able to combat, COVID-19.
Mr. Ibrahim, are you sanguine about the prospects and the outcomes of the first half fiscal and monetary interventions, and how it's going to play out in the second half? Because we saw those interventions in the first half. So how are you sanguine about those prospects?
So the prospect, the H1 intervention that we had, I think is commendable, and it is also remarkable. But I think in H2, what we will probably see is a case where, there's a bit of a slowdown in terms of the ability of the government to get, foreign aid. Talking about multilateral, loans in this case. Bear in mind, in the first half, we were very quickly able to get inflows from the AFDB, got inflows, from the IMF. Those came in very quickly. But in the second half, what we are still expecting is that of the World Bank, and we are yet to get that. So there's probably going to be like a bit of a time lag or a bit of a delay in terms of how we get aid in H2. But I reckon that we've gotten some good data or number in terms of how much we'll probably need in H1, and that to some extent is beginning to cushion the impact of the revenue shortfall on government's ability to spend. So by the time we have the World Bank inflows coming for the federal government and also for the state, I think the economy will further be on a balanced scale in terms of generating support from multilateral funding agencies. So I think broadly speaking, we are still heading in the right direction. We just need to do the needful, and bearing in mind that all these aids will not be available in 2021.
I just announced earlier on that the World Bank has approved $114 million for Nigeria to combat the COVID-19 response. $14 million of it will be shared among states. The $100 million of it is the loan aspect, and all of that to help us combat the COVID-19 response. The question also would be, all the stimuli that we're getting, can we avoid a recession?
We cannot avoid a recession. So let me talk very briefly on what the World Bank has done. I think the major loan that the country is expecting is the $1 to $1.5 billion, that we are expecting. That is yet to be approved. So that other 100 million or thereabouts, that was approved is far below what, that bigger number that we are looking for. On the second one, we cannot avoid a recession, sadly, because of a couple of factors. Number one is that
Okay, network has frozen. Let's quickly take a break to try to reconnect Tajudeen Ibrahim. We'll be right back, but use this break to send us your comments, your questions, as well as your opinions. You can find us on Twitter, Moneyline TV. On Facebook, we're Moneyline with Nancy TV. On Instagram, we're also there. On YouTube, go to our YouTube channel right now, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Subscribe, and don't forget to press the notification button. We'll be right back. All right, Mr. Tajudeen Ibrahim is back. He's the Senior Vice President, Head of Research and Strategy at Chapel Hill. Tajudeen, so sorry. It's one of those things. We're talking of...
It's one of those things, actually.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I said it's one of those things. We are talking of, okay, we need tech. We're all working with tech. We're all working with tech. We have to be innovative. This is part of innovation, but we also need infrastructure to support the innovation, you know.
Absolutely.
So it's still one of those side things that happen with this. But let's continue. The fiscal band-aid, like we've seen like a bandage that was given, you're smiling. Yeah, I hope my viewers understand what I'm saying. The fiscal bandage that was given by the federal government as palliatives to Nigerians. Not everyone, majority of Nigerians did not get that palliatives. They even call it palliatives. Is it palliatives? Because it's just conditional cash transfer. So I shouldn't be put into that net of calling it a palliative. But if you take a look at it, some of it would have worn off because it's like a one-off stuff. Some, it will just last for like 3 to 4 months. And we all come back to status quo. It will not be same old, same old. I hope you understand where I'm going to. So
I get you.
Yes, so how are we going to see that playing out in the second half, which we are already 2 months in?
Okay, so in this second half, I believe what probably will happen is everybody will just have to fend for him or herself because the government can only do a little. It is very clear from onset, what the impact of the government palliatives, were, and what they for how long they could last. So I believe Nigerians will just get back to work. Nigerians will get back to their businesses. That is my personal view because we're already seeing that as we speak. So a couple of people are already going on with their businesses. The last time I had to purchase 1 or 2 tires from a dealer, he was complaining bitterly about how they shouldn't be operating on a 1 day on 1 day off basis because the market where they operate in is not a big market for that matter. So nonetheless, he is doing his business quietly or secretly, irrespective of whether we have like a day of an on day for the market or an off day for the market. So I believe Nigerians, particularly those in the small, medium, and micro businesses, would just have to move on with their lives. And but there is a risk, which is a risk of if more sort of infections about the COVID-19. Nonetheless, I think people are more afraid of hunger, generally speaking, than they are afraid of coronavirus.
But it depends on the category of people you are looking at. The big men are not afraid of hunger. Majority of Nigerians.
So the question is, how many big men do we have in Nigeria? Maybe 1%?
Are they even up to 1%?
That is the question. So the majority, so this speaks to the government doing like a full plan in such a way that we are able to tackle future problems. And what we are suffering from as we speak is the lack of infrastructure in this country. So if we have the right infrastructure in place, everybody will be able to do their businesses without necessarily waiting for the government. But you have to depend on the government for petrol at some point. You have to depend on the government for power, for electricity to do your business. When you go the alternate source of power, you incur more costs for your business. So when all these sort of key infrastructure problems are solved, fully solved, then everybody will be able to operate, and largely speaking, the bulk of the population will be able to run their businesses successfully, and then we'll be talking about a stable economy from them, and from stability we'll be talking about improving or growing further from the level that we have. But if we do not solve all those key problems, no matter how much the government gives, it is going to be exhausted at some point, and then we will be back to status quo.
Do you think that perhaps the government should change strategy a bit as we go into the second? Okay, we're already into the second half, 2 months in. We just have 4 months to the end of the year. We're already in August. We have September, October, November, December. Should the authorities look beyond the numbers? I know numbers are very key. And in fact, like I always say too on the show, numbers are human beings. Because economists and research analysts like you, we're always looking at the numbers every day. But should the authorities look beyond those numbers and walk around to see and feel the intensity of the pandemic worsen the economy? Can we see more than market intelligence right now, talking to employers, talking to businesses, talking to businessmen and women, young people, people who have left school, NYSC graduates that do not have nowhere to go right now. They are confused as they're staying at home. Can we begin to see more of that so that the government, when I mean government, I don't just mean the central government, federal and even state and local government, to see and feel the intensity so that they can actually know what to do. It's not about 2.3 trillion economic sustainability plan. What are we giving it to? What kind of jobs are we creating? Are we giving it to people that after 2 or 3 months, they use it to chop, feed their stomach? And at the end of the day, it comes back to, we still come back to same old, same old. I hope you get my question.
I get your question. I think what the government can do is to look beyond the numbers. Looking beyond the numbers, one way to do that is to visit places where Nigerians are suffering. So you go to the main hoods, like some people will call it, where Nigerians have nothing to eat, no jobs, no education. Now we are talking about in education, we are talking about social distancing. So because of that, for instance, pupils and students have not been able to go to school. But bear in mind, we have a few people in the country that their children are still going to school via online devices or online channels or online means. But those that cannot afford it have their children at home doing nothing, not engaged. So the government really needs to go beyond the numbers, visit places where the level of poverty is very high. There are a lot of places like that in Lagos. And the government, I believe, know those places. So if they go there to understand how best they can help the communities, how best they can solve their problems, then it will go a long way in making the recovery and all-round recovery and not a segmental recovery. So things will go around in terms of supporting the entire population of Lagos State, for instance. And I think, the government should work in a collaborative manner. I see a lot that the governor is doing, talking about Governor Sanwo-Olu, but I am not completely sure how much the public is seeing that the local governments are doing in terms of combating this COVID-19 pandemic and putting in place measures to support and help the people, because it is even the local governments that are closer to the people compared to the state government.
And you know what? It's not just about Lagos, because we always fall into the trap of when we call federal government, the next state we will call is Lagos. The next place we will call
Lagos next.
Yes, after federal government is Lagos. After Lagos is Abuja.
Lagos is where Nigeria breathes. If Lagos stops breathing, Nigeria stops breathing. So after Lagos, we look at other states. So and we bear in mind also that the cases are a lot more in Lagos, than they are in every other state. So that is why the focus is primarily on Lagos to start with, and then on a secondary note, let other states learn from Lagos.
Or do better than Lagos. Learn from Lagos's mistake and do better, since many other states are not as populated as Lagos.
Absolutely. Because somebody will start the strategy and the other states can learn from probably their mistakes and then from that point on, they improve on their own, sort of strategy as well. And just like you rightly said, their own states are probably not as populated as Lagos, and so they should be able, to manage, these challenges. I think it has to be collaborative. The state government collaborating with the local government in each of the 36 states. If we take that approach, I think the result can be a lot material, positively material, than even the government would expect.
Which data? Because we have a lot of data, and this morning I don't know why I'm feeling like this, but I will go with the flow. Seeing beyond the numbers, seeing it just the way economists say it. But which economic data will happen to worsen the second half? Which will worsen the second half? And which economic data will really read the economic crisis that we are in right now?
Okay, so number one, the one that every Nigerian should watch out for is price increases. Price increases, and that speaks to inflation. So in our world, we will call it inflation, but let me use the word that everybody would understand. People generally, I think, should expect price increases because of 2 or 3 factors. Number one is the PMS price adjustment, which is now more frequent than previously, that we had it pegged to a particular number. So each time we see the prices of crude oil go up in the second half of 2020, Nigerians should expect higher prices of goods and services, because by then the PPRA will adjust the pricing template higher to cater for, to adjust for the increase in crude oil prices in the global market. So the prices of food will probably be higher at that point. The prices of accommodation will also probably be higher. Then we'll be talking also, more importantly, about the prices of transport, moving from one place to another. Drivers, transport operators will probably increase prices at that point. So I think that is one thing we should expect. And the second thing that could also drive prices higher in the second half is the illiquidity in the foreign exchange market. We are seeing the illiquidity affecting the ability of importers to bring in goods and services. At the same time, the CBN has not started to sell dollars to the BDC operators. At the same time, the CBN has excluded 1 or 2 more items from the items that can access the CBN foreign exchange window. So all these speak to the possibility of higher prices, because if producers of goods and services have to go to the black market, as we call it, to get dollars at a higher price, what it means is they will also increase the prices of their goods and services. So broadly speaking, consumers, I think, in Nigeria, will likely see higher prices of goods and services. And speaking to what is the major thing that could turn like a fortune for the country in the second half, I think one key element is crude oil prices. So as we have it now, since there is no more fuel subsidy, one key thing I would expect from the government is for them to invest.
I was coming to that, actually. I was coming to that.
The subsidy that has been taken away, can the government invest this in infrastructure to solve some of our problems? If the government is doing that, then we are positive on that front. But if we do not have the subsidy and the consumers have to pay more for PMS, and there is no infrastructure that is built for the subsidy that is taken away, then there is a bigger problem, and the government should be ready to tackle such problems when they emerge in future.
I was coming to that. You just took it out of my mouth, that fuel subsidies have been removed. What do you think will be the impact, short to medium term, on Nigerians, since we spend trillions and trillions of naira year in, year out on subsidy? But one part of my mind is also saying it's a difficult one economically, fiscally for us as a country. So perhaps the government would also take the monies that they would have used in doing for fuel subsidy, apply it into some other things, you know, servicing of our debts, for example, and some other developmental, or is it really development? We don't have money, we don't have money. So they will take money that would have been for the fuel subsidy and put it into other things. Would it even show, do you understand, would we even see the you know, the difference that fuel subsidy has been removed?
Okay, so in an economy where the government wants to be transparent, what you would expect is the removal of the fuel subsidy that, you know, everybody had been talking about has now come to stay. It has been removed. But in a transparent economy, what you would see is a case where the government, over like a 4 to 6 month period, will come to the public and say, look, this is how much we have been able to save when we removed that fuel subsidy, and we are committing the amount to this particular project, a project that can, number one, you know, serve the needs of Nigerians, a project that can, number two, potentially generate revenue for the government. So if we are doing this, everybody will be willing to pay whatever the PMS prices are. So now we are having, you know, petrol and crude oil prices at about $44 per barrel, and fuel prices are like $150 naira to a liter. Now, what will happen if crude oil prices should go to like 90 naira, which is like double the current level? So that means that, you know, we will have to be buying per liter of petrol, you know, depending on whatever calculation they come up with, at something close to like 300 naira per liter.
Okay, Mr. Ibrahim, we just have a minute and a half to end this interview. And I want to ask you two questions. The first one is, should we also be calling for an audit of how much that has been spent concerning COVID-19 response, palliatives and co? I remember during the AIT town hall, was in April or so, the Minister of Staff Management and Social Development was on the program. I tried to ask her how much we've spent so far. Should Nigerians call for an audit? Because if you take a look at South Africa right now, there's a corruption scandal going on. People are spending, President Ramaphosa, spending money meant for COVID-19 response. The number two question is, for Nigerians watching us right now, what should they take away from the over 30 minutes discussion that we've been having? Because I told them at the beginning of the program, take your biro and paper. What should they write on it?
Okay, so I figure one major thing that, you know, any responsible government will do is to be open and also to be transparent. So if we call for the audit of the COVID-19, you know, sort of aids that the government got, I think there is nothing bad in it. So the government should be able to, should be accountable. That is one. So the entire summary of you know, the show, you know, that I have spoken to so far is, number one, the government should look beyond the data and ensure that, you know, their response to COVID-19 is collaborative. Number two, consumers in Nigeria should look out for higher prices. And that's it. Okay.
I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Tajudeen Ibrahim, the Senior Vice President, Head of Research and Strategy at Chapel Hill. Thank you for your insights and perspectives this morning. All right.
Thank you.
All right, I've been speaking with Tajudeen Ibrahim, Senior Vice President, Head of Research and Strategy at Chapel Hill, Denham. I'm handing you over to Nnaji in the new studio for AIT Reports. Nnaji, take it away. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below turn on post notification to follow all our updates.